There are some things that money can't buy. Citizenship is no longer among them. It is now official. Where you come from depends on the size of your wallet. With some thousands of dollars, you can choose where you want to come from, and if you have $1 million to spare, you can even become a citizen of the United States. In this short documentary video, we will explore this question by highlighting the core legal and ethical puzzles associated with the surge in cash for passport programs. The spread of these new programs is one of the most significant developments in citizenship practice in the past few decades. It tests our deepest intuitions about the meaning and attributes of the relationship between the individual and the political community to which she belongs. We will endeavor to identify the main strategies employed by a growing number of states putting their visas and passports for sale, selectively opening their otherwise bolted gates of admission to the high net worth individuals of the world. Moving from the positive to the normative, the discussion then will elaborate the main arguments in favor of, as well as against, citizenship for sale. The discussion draws attention to the distributive and political implications of these developments, both locally and globally, and identifies the deeper forces at work that contribute to the perpetual testing, blurring, and erosion of the state market boundary regulating access to membership or citizenship. Selling citizenship is now big business. You can be born into it, you can earn it, and you can lose it. Increasingly, you can also invest your way into it. The "it's here" is the citizenship of a particular country, and it is a more fluid concept than ever before. Go back 50 years, and it was uncommon for countries to allow dual citizenship, but it is now almost universal. More than half of the world's nations now have citizenship through investment programs. According to one expert, a Swiss lawyer Christian Kalin, it is now a global industry worth $25 billion, £20 billion a year. Mr. Kalin, who has been dubbed Mr. Passport, is the chairman of Henley & Partners, one of the world's biggest players in this rapidly growing market. His global business helps wealthy individuals and their families acquire residency or citizenship in other countries. He says that our traditional notions of citizenship are outdated. This is one of the few things left in the world that is tied to bloodlines, or where you were born, he says. He argues that a rethink is very much due. It's super unfair, he says, explaining that where we are born is by no means down to our own skill or talent, but instead pure luck. What is wrong with regarding citizenship like a membership, he adds. And what is wrong with admitting talented people who will contribute? There are those who support his argument. But for many, the idea that passports, so tied to identity, are in some way a commodity doesn't sit well. Citizenship by investment enables individuals to acquire additional citizenship by making an exceptional economic contribution to another country. This can be done by successfully completing a citizenship by investment program, also referred to as immigrant investor programs. Most of these programs are structured to ensure that the investment contributes to the welfare, advancement, and economic development of the country in which they wish to reside or belong to. It is more often more about making an economic contribution than just an investment. These programs must be run in a manner that is legal and transparent, and in keeping with the constitution of the nation offering citizenship. This ideally should prevent corruption at the same time as giving the individual obtaining citizenship a sound legal right to their new citizenship. Several countries are currently able to offer investors citizenship or residence in return for economic investment. This is usually in the form of requiring substantial investment, coupled with compliance, residence, and language requirements, among others. These countries are very selective in the type of individual they will allow gaining citizenship. However, these individuals are more often than not motivated by more than just capital gains, and are looking to invest in a country more substantially from a family, social or cultural perspective. These individuals who bring their family with them as dependents commonly contribute to the economy in a variety of ways, including paying for private schooling, purchasing real estate, extending their business and creating employment. Previously, the majority of countries with citizenship by investment programs were located in the Caribbean, for example, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Dominica. More recently in the European Union, Malta and Cyprus have both developed successful programs. It is estimated that each year, hundreds of wealthy people spend a collective $2 billion to add a second or third passport to their collection. It is estimated that in 2018, 1,006 million euros came into Cyprus in revenues from the Cyprus Citizenship by Investment program. Alternatively, countries may offer certain options to secure a permanent residence. Examples of countries offering such residence programs are the United Kingdom, Switzerland, Portugal, Bulgaria, Canada, and Australia. In the US, Congress created the Employment-Based Fifth Preference Immigrant Visa Category, EB-5, in 1990 to benefit the U.S. economy by attracting investments from high-net-worth foreign nationals in return for lawful permanent resident status, commonly referred to as Green Card. Congress intended to create and sustain American jobs by infusing foreign investment into the U.S. economy. The Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, sets aside 10,000 visas each fiscal year, October 1st to September 30th, for immigrant investors along with their spouses and unmarried children under the age of 21. The USCIS has allocated a quota of 700 green cards per country each fiscal year. Pursuant to the EB-5 program, foreign nationals may pool their investments in economic entities, public or private, known as regional centers, and claim credit for direct or indirect induced job creation. Foreign nationals and their qualifying dependents initially receive conditional permanent resident status for a 2-year period, and if the investment and job creation requirements are thereafter satisfied, the conditions are removed, and unconditional lawful permanent resident status is granted. The minimum investment required under the EB-5 program is $900,000 in high unemployment areas and $1,800,000 outside those areas. Investments under the EB-5 program must be at risk, that is, while the investments can be secured by the assets of the project, the return of investment cannot be guaranteed. There are the advantages of the EB-5 visa. For many investors, EB-5 visa is the easiest option to get green cards for the entire family. EB-5 visa does not require an offer of employment or family sponsorship. An EB-5 investor can self-petition for an EB-5 visa. For nationals of many countries, the EB-5 visa is one of the fastest ways to become a lawful permanent resident of the United States. There are no educational, business background, or language requirements for EB-5 investors or their qualifying dependents. The EU is taking action against 2 member states, Cyprus and Malta, over their investor citizenship schemes. These schemes essentially allow people to buy their way into citizenship, without having any real links to the country or even having to reside there. With this citizenship comes the benefits enjoyed by any other citizen of an EU member state, the freedom to travel, live and work across the bloc, and even to vote in certain elections. This, says the EU, is a risk to security, transparency, and to the values that underpin the European Union project. But Cyprus and Malta aren't the only member states that allow those with enough money to invest their way into citizenship, and there are a host of other countries that have residency up for sale. Which countries offer citizenship or residency in exchange for investment? Cyprus and Malta are the 2 currently under the EU spotlight, with the EU launching infringement procedures against them for their investor citizenship schemes. Bulgaria is the other member state that offers such a scheme, and the EU has written to the country highlighting its concerns and asking for more details. But there is also more widespread use of investor residency schemes across the EU, which gives investors the chance to, as the name suggests, gain residency in a given country. While residency doesn't confer the same freedoms as citizenship in an EU country, it does give a person the right to reside in the country in question, but also to travel freely in the Schengen area. This, the EU claims, poses just the same risks as the investor citizenship scheme. Investor residency schemes are available in 19 member states, plus the United Kingdom. Those states are Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Estonia, Ireland, Greece, Spain, France, Croatia, Italy, Cyprus, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, and Slovakia. How these schemes work. Essentially, investors can invest a certain amount of money in property or other investments within a country, and gain a passport after following a process, which can also be fast-tracked. For example, non-Europeans could get a Cypriot passport for a minimum of €2.15 million by investing €2 million in real estate and donating €75,000 to the government's research and development fund, and €75,000 to the country's land development organization. In the case of the 3 EU countries that offer citizenship by this route, none of them require physical residence for the individual, says the EU, or a requirement for other genuine connections to the country. Residency schemes work in a similar way, granting residency to those who fulfill the criteria. What's the problem here then? The EU says the schemes are a security risk, and that they undermine the essence of the European Union and the freedoms that come with citizenship of a member state. Crucially, if somebody pays their way into the citizenship of an EU member state, that doesn't just affect the member state in question, it affects any other member state the person may decide to move to or to work in. Citizenship is not a commodity, said Sven Giegold, a Green MEP. No member state should sell the citizenship right, which is then valid in all member states. This business model is against the very principle of European cooperation. Multiple passports can be a good option for a quick getaway. It is now obvious that it's not only spies that need multiple passports any longer, but a growing number of high net worth individuals as asset protection instruments or even personal security insurance, in events of political turmoil, natural disaster, or even lawsuits that threaten you and your family personal freedom. Do you want to have peace of mind over your life and your assets? Do you want to be sure that you and your family are safe when something goes wrong in your country? That your family and your assets are safe? Then apply for a Citizenship-by-investment program now. Today, a person of talent and means does not need to limit his or her life and citizenship to only one country. Imagine, the political regime changes in your country, and you are forced to leave in a rush. Making an active move with regard to your citizenship gives you more personal and financial freedom. And it guarantees you privacy and security. This is the argument employed by these passport for sale agencies to lure high net worth individuals and families to participate in these programs. After the 2016 presidential election, so many people were dreaming about moving out of the US that Canada's immigration website crashed. Now, the idea of becoming an expat is getting hot again. According to a recent YouGov survey, 31% of Americans say they are interested in bolting if their candidate isn't elected in the last year November elections. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson recently made headlines when they became honorary Greek citizens and received second passports. And with the coronavirus pandemic restricting travel for U.S. citizens and the power of the U.S. passport on the decline, it's no surprise that many Americans are investigating how they can buy a second passport, whether it's to seek shelter in another country or just to be able to travel more freely. Some countries like Barbados and Estonia are luring remote workers with the promise of extended residency programs, which allow you to live and work there for a specified amount of time. But when it comes to obtaining an actual passport, it's typically more complicated than you'd expect. It can often take up to 5 years of living in a place to become a resident. If Hanks and Wilson had taken the normal route to Greek citizenship, they would have had to invest several $100,000 in real estate and live in the country for 7 years. Many countries also require you to renounce your U.S. citizenship. Here's the good news, there are also countries around the world that welcome Americans, for a price, with the Citizen-by-investment programs that grant residency and a second passport. And thanks to the coronavirus pandemic, a handful of Caribbean islands are making it even easier, and cheaper, than ever to obtain a second passport. It wasn't too long ago that nearly every human being lived their entire lives without traveling more than 10 miles from home. For the small handful of people who actually did venture out, you could make it across the globe with no official documents whatsoever. This began to change rapidly in the 1920s. The newly formed League of Nations began meddling in the business of international travel and worked to standardize an international identification document that would be required by travelers to cross most borders. The ominous phrase, "Papers, please," was born from this standardization. These days, international travel is big business for governments. Think about all the massive bureaucracies that have been created as a result of national borders, immigration checkpoints, customs, border patrol, passport offices, even the IRS is involved in passport application procedures. As much as it would be nice to go back to the days when people were free to crisscross the world without such inconveniences and indignities, this just isn't going to happen. So since we can't go back to a zero passport world, the next best solution is a multiple passport world. Let me explain this even further. Nearly everyone on the planet becomes a citizen of some country at birth, either due to the citizenship of their parents or the country that they were born in. Most people live their entire life with this sole citizenship and usually reside in the same country. In a way, this is akin to having all of your eggs in one basket. Living, working, banking, and conducting all your businesses in the same country of your citizenship. And history is full of colorful examples of those baskets breaking, from economic hardship to social turmoil to natural disaster to all-out genocide. Ultimately, the concept of having multiple citizenships is about having more baskets and spreading your eggs around. It means having more flexibility, no longer being constrained by the limitations of a single country. Did you know that a US or Canadian passport isn't particularly useful to travel to South America? US and Canadian citizens have to obtain a visa, in advance, just to travel to Paraguay. Or Brazil. Plus Argentina and Chile both charge reciprocity fees on arrival, since the US and Canadian governments do the same thing. Other nationalities are welcomed with open arms. Singaporean citizens, for example, enjoy visa-free, or visa on arrival, travel to nearly every country on the planet. Singapore is the only passport in the world that commands visa-free, or visa on arrival, travel to the US, UK, European Schengen area, China and India. We follow the citizenship trail to the tiny Pacific island nation of Vanuatu. Since the country introduced its new citizenship scheme 4 years ago, it's seen an explosion of interest. Passports now provide the biggest source of its government's revenues. For many aspiring Vanuatu passport holders, the biggest draw is visa-free travel throughout Europe. Most foreign recipients of Vanuatu passports never even step foot in the country. Instead, they apply for their citizenship in offices overseas, like the licensed Vanuatu citizenship broker PRG Consulting, based in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is one of the world's biggest citizenship marketplaces. In a cafe at Hong Kong Airport, we met the citizenship agent MJ, a private businessman who helps an increasing number of mainland Chinese obtain a second or even third passport. They don't feel safe in China, he says of his clients. They want access to Europe or America to open a bank account, to buy properties, or to start businesses. Citizenship is a competitive global market now, and for many small and island nations, notably in the Caribbean, the price for a passport is around $150,000. The cost of a Vanuatu passport is said to be around the same level. This is how much it will cost you to buy a passport in any of these nations. Antigua and Barbuda, from $100,000. St. Kitts and Nevis, from $150,000. Montenegro, from $274,000. Portugal, from $384,000. Spain, from $550,000. Bulgaria, from $560,000. Malta, from $1 million. US, from $900,000 invested in a business creating 10 jobs. UK, from $2.5 million. A Vanuatu passport, an agent explains, is so fast to arrange, you can get one in just 30 days, and that helps make it a popular choice. Although some passports for sale agents and others caution that Vanuatu has a reputation for corruption. As a result, many have stopped recommending their high net worth clients a passport through the Vanuatu citizenship program, an agent said to me. However, this doesn't stop the interest from China. A few years ago, Hong Kong television channels aired catchy TV advertisements promoting Vanuatu citizenship, aimed at the territory's steady flow of visitors from the mainland. So how many Chinese clients actually visit Vanuatu after receiving citizenship? Maybe 1 in 10, the agent said. Port Vila is the capital of Vanuatu and a city of contrasts. The roads are often flooded and scarred with potholes. There's not a single set of traffic lights, but congestion is worsening thanks to the growing number of shiny four-wheel drives. It's a tax haven, and recently rejoined the EU's blacklist of countries, over transparency and corruption issues. The country's people, known as Ni Vanuatu, were only officially recognized as citizens themselves in 1980, when the country achieved independence. Previously it was an Anglo-French condominium called the New Hebrides, and the people are scattered over a daisy chain of more than 80 islands. Less than 40 years ago, they were stateless. A fact not lost on her former Prime Minister Barack Soap. I didn't have a passport until 1980, he says, sitting in a hotel and casino on Port Vila's main road. I had to travel with a piece of paper the British and the French gave to me. It was humiliating. Mr. Soap says it is a betrayal for Vanuatu to sell its citizenship and points to the flood of Chinese investment in the region. The Chinese have so much more money than us, he says, exasperated. The Chinese investment is criticized by locals such as Mr. Soap, who complain that the Chinese companies keep all the money and only employ Chinese labor. Vanuatu's all-male government, one of only 3 countries in the world where women are entirely excluded from politics, was not keen to speak to us about its citizenship scheme. But according to an interview they had with BBC, the Minister for Citizenship-by-investment Bill Bonney, who explains his take on the initiative. We have to look at Vanuatu on a global scale, he says. Other countries sell passports to make their living, we don't have a lot of natural resources. It's bringing in a lot of money to Vanuatu. But for the mainly rural population, the policy has been highly controversial since its inception in 2015. Ann Pakoa, a community leader, shows us around a typical village made up of corrugated iron shacks. It's just 10 minutes drive down a dirt road from the shops and restaurants of the capital that feels a world away. And says that local communities aren't seeing the money from the passport sales, despite promises that the scheme would rebuild infrastructure and homes after the devastating Cyclone Pam in 2015. Our ancestors died for our freedom. Now people are carrying the same green passport I carry. For $150,000? Where is the money? I think this has to stop, she says. Susan, another woman from the same village, shows us a dirty well. I want the government to provide a running tap, so that the children can have a shower, and drink clean and safe water, she says. With demand from the Chinese market booming, Dan McGarry, who runs the local newspaper, says it will be hard to imagine a change in policy anytime soon. Passport sales now account for more than 30% of the country's revenue, according to Dan. For a tiny country like ours, this is a big deal. But we have to ask ourselves, is this what we fought for? Is this right? Is it right to sell our hard-won sovereignty to the highest bidder? It's a question that many countries, not just Vanuatu, will have to grapple with in an increasingly globalized world. But as Mr. Kalin, from Henley & Partners says, citizenship through investment, and investment migration programs, are nothing but a reflection of a world where everything has become more fluid, our sense of morality and justice has become a commodity, and the good old days good conscience is lost in the dustbin of history. To sum it all, in a globalized and technologically controlled world today, you can become and unbecome whoever you choose in a matter of minutes depending on the size of your wallet. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell icon on your YouTube to notify you as soon as we upload our thought-provoking videos. We will always cover topics that are uncovered by conventional media, and strive to educate, entertain and inspire our numerous subscribers. Use the comment area to let us know how you feel about the topics we cover and tell us which topic you would like us to cover in our upcoming videos. Thank you for being here.